right, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Miss Elaine, you willing to do the roll call?
You bet, I can do that. So thank you all for being here. Roll call starts with Ada County. Tom Daly,
Here.
Brian Davidson,
Here.
Ada County Highway District, Alexis Pickering,
Here.
Yeshu, Lance McGinnis Brown,
Here.
Canyon County, Greg Rast, Brad Holton, CCDC, John Brunel or Zach Pipemeyer.
This is Zach. I'm here.
Okay. CWI, Jeff Flynn or Nick Miller.
This is Nick. I'm here.
Thank you. Meridian Development Corporation, Ashley Ford Squires.
Here.
City of Boise, Jordan Morales.
Here.
And Mayor McLean is not here today. Bree Brush.
Yes, here.
Thank you. City of Caldwell, Jerem Wagner. And Mike Dittenberg. City of Eagle, Helen Russell.
Here.
City of Garden City, John Evans.
Here.
City of Greenleaf, Rob Fisher or Lee Belt. City of Cuna, Joe Steer.
Here.
City of Meridian, Dave Teedy.
Here.
City of Nampa, Debbie Kling.
Here.
Dale Reynolds.
Here.
City of Star, Dave Hershey or Trevor Chadwick. And ITD, Mark Wasdall. Or is Jason Brinkman online? Looks like Mark. Okay. Madam Chair, we do have a quorum.
Great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. With that, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Dale Reynolds. Thank you both. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we're going to move on to the consent agenda.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Elaine.
If I might ask that we have an announcement here, and of course I let my computer die, so now I have to log back in. We won't have a meeting before this happens, and we just received word from the American Public Transportation Association, which, if you'll remember, we rejoined at your behest after I came on board, that we have been chosen for this year's grand award for the Ad Wheels Award competition for marketing, communications, and customer experience for our Let's Ride BOI integrated brand awareness and ridership campaign. And it was judged the best marketing and communications campaign to increase ridership for systems providing 3 million or fewer annual passenger trips. And we will be recognized at the APTA Awards Luncheon on September 16th in Boston at the annual conference. And I so wish Jason Rose was in the room, because this campaign would not have happened without him. And he not only helped guide it, but made sure that it got all the places it needed to be effective. So next time you see Jason, let him know, if you would.
That's so amazing. Thanks, Elaine.
You bet.
All right. Items on the consent agenda are action items unless enacted by, will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a VRT board member requests that item be removed from the consent agenda and placed under action items. Is there any request to move any of these items to the regular agenda? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Mayor Wagner, second. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Lance. All right, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, thanks all. Okay. Don't think we have any special items. Public comment. Is there anyone here that would like to address the board? All right. Moving on to item number 6, public hearing. We've got a public hearing. It's the fiscal year 2026 operating capital budget and unified planning work program. I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Welcome, Mr. Jason Ledry.
Give me just a moment to get my screen shared. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I am here to present the FY26 draft final capital and operating budget. This information can be found on pages 353 through 369 of your board packet. This is an action item. Staff requests that following the public hearing, the VRT Board consider approval of Resolution VBD 25-036 to adopt the FY26 capital and operating budget with any changes desired. One thing I wanted to point out is that this is a transition year. We implemented a new ERP system that required a revised chart of accounts. This led to the creation of new divisions and changes to existing division numbers. For example, Division 10 is now Division 11. Division 20 is now Division 41. Our IT budget was previously split into two divisions, or between two divisions. It is now consolidated into its own division, number 14. And Division 12 now includes budgets from 3 other divisions. So as a result, detailed comparisons between FY25 and 26 will not align cleanly at the division level. I think the best practice for comparison this year is to use the summary level comparisons by major functional area rather than by division. So on this next slide, the top table is looking at the comparisons by major functional area. If you look at regional operating, you'll see that it is 6% higher than FY25. Specialized transportation is down 5% compared to FY25. Ada County operations is up by 5%. Canyon County operations is up by 12%. And our capital budget is down by 70%. And overall, the budget reflects a 25% decrease, which is driven by a 4.9% increase at the operating budget and a 70% reduction in the capital budget.
I might just add here, if you'll remember last year, the Canyon County operating budget was under budgeted on utilities and some other things. So the increase there is not just the typical increases that we've seen this year on fuel and everything else, but also catching up on what was actually incorrect budget last year.
Thanks, Elaine. Looking at drivers of the increases, higher operations budgets in both Ada County and Canyon County are due to inflation, health insurance, wages and contract expenses, as well as what Elaine just mentioned. Looking at the 6% increase for regional operations, that is primarily due to general liability insurance. We had a large increase this year. Materials and supplies costs are up, and professional services. And I wanted to point out that $500,000 of the professional services budget, it is driven by advertising growth for bus wraps and bench advertising. That is the production of the wraps, the installation. We do get fully reimbursed from that from our advertising customers, but it does increase the overall budget.
Yeah, so remember that increase is actually earnings in the end for us. It comes back as revenue. So it's a higher budget number, but it's also higher revenue.
Looking at some cost savings, Canyon County minimized health insurance increases as much as they could by switching to a new provider. Ada County has lowered Proterra bus parts, utilizing third-party vendors. And CNG prices in Canyon County are beginning to decline, or at least they were when I put this together. I haven't looked recently, so hopefully that's still the case. General increases, the budget increase in the Meridian Condo Association expenses. We included budget for a 15% increase in general liability insurance. Budget for an estimated 3% health insurance cost increase for regional operations. And budget for a 14% increase of federal pass-through funding to subrecipients. So that's 100% federal that comes into us, and then we pass it through to subrecipients. Looking at the wage pool, we included budget for a 2.5% regional wage pool increase, and that comes at a cost of $82,000. Wage expense increases for Ada and Canyon County operations are the result of collective bargaining agreements and scheduled wage adjustments. So we don't have a lot of control over that.
I want to flag for the board that Elaine is also included in that 2.5% increase.
Correct. Looking at changes and reductions, as I mentioned, we implemented a new ERP system. We have a 5% reduction in expenses for Beyond Access, and that is due to a continued funding cut from the Idaho Area Agency on Aging. Budget next steps, we plan to focus on tracking member budgets, contribution commitments, and finalizing cooperative agreements by September 30th. And I did want to point out that the contributions that are funding partners, we have a list of those. It is included in the board packet. I did not include it in my slide. It is in the packet for you to review.
But if you looked at that list, we are on track with what we expected this year. While we very rarely get everything we request, we're certainly within the margin of error.
And with that, I'd be happy to try to answer any questions any of you may have.
Thanks, Jason. Now's the time for questions for staff. Anyone online? Folks in the room? Okay. I'm going to move over
Madam
to,
Chair,
oh,
sorry.
Lance.
A question occurs to me as I'm trying to think about how to tie what we heard about VRT 3.0 to what's going on in the budget. And my memory is a little fuzzy on the specific metrics used in VRT 3.0, but I'm wondering if there's some way to get at those metrics that were used to compare VRT to peer agencies elsewhere. One of them might have been costs per ridership or something like that. I'm not sure if you have the ability to estimate that for an upcoming year, but it would be interesting to see that tied in a little bit to see how those indicators may be changing over time and how our estimates may be comparing to actual numbers over time.
Right. No, I think that's a good idea. We can work with our planning department to look at that. Thanks.
Is there anyone member of the public that would like to comment on this? Oh, Bree, did you have something?
Yes, I had a question on the funding requests for Ada and Canyon County as provided in the packet on page 365, noting a couple of differences from member agencies on what's been approved in their budget and maybe what's being requested by VRT. So I'm curious what the plan is to address that or offset that in the budget.
Yeah, and I've already spoken to Stephen. We have a plan in place where we can get together and reconcile and figure out how that is, or determine how it's going to impact our budget. It would impact it most likely going down, so we wouldn't have to bring it back to the board. We would just let the appropriate areas know that we have to lower their budget. But obviously, it'll be a large group and on our side that talks through it.
And Bree, I think it's a good question. I think ongoing, there's a recognition that it's been hard, frankly, for both counties to understand how the services directly impact them. We've been working on it. Certainly Ada County responded with a fair amount of the request, but not all of it. And Canyon County, if you look at their budget and what they've done with any outside requests this year, they've not funded any of the outside requests that they received, from my understanding. So we've been thinking about and talking to them. I just began a discussion with a variety of folks of a different venue for them to consider funding from. Each of them have enterprise funds that serve entertainment districts. And I don't know where that will lead in the future, but it's my commitment to ensure that all of our partners are contributing in the manner that they're being served. And so in terms of Canyon County, much of their service is, it's difficult with counties because if you cut that service, then you're cutting the adjacent cities and other service providers. So you can't really do that. So we've been trying to figure out a way to adjust service in a way that seems most fair, but more importantly, to talk to both of those entities about the services they do receive, why they're valuable, what they're valuable for, and how we can move forward to finding a equitable way to contribute toward those services in both cases. On the smaller cities that also chose not to contribute, we are also going back to them with a conversation about contributing directly to the specialized services that each of them receive. If you'll note in the memos this month, we received a funding cut from the Area Agency on Aging. We're going to have to figure out a way to make that up. And so we're going to all of those smaller agencies because they receive direct service from those services and seeing if we can get at least some funding to help make up that.
Mayor Kling.
So the area service on aging, was that cut due to federal cuts? Was it a direct response to them losing funding?
I'm still getting all of the details, but it looks like it was part of the rescission package and part of the funding that went directly to the Office on Aging nationally that then got passed on to the Idaho Commission on Aging and ultimately to the area agencies.
Thank you. And another question, if I may. So for Canyon County, and I'm sorry, I'm asking this publicly and just not aware, has the funding changed over the years? Did they used to fund or have we never funded from Canyon County?
Both counties have historically funded some. Neither county has historically funded at the amounts that we've asked for, which tells me there's something broken in the process of what we're asking for and how we're talking about it, which is why I'm going to try to approach it differently. But recently, Canyon County has both, from what I understand, have had very difficult budget years, the last two budget years, and this is the first time that I understand that they haven't funded at all.
Thank you.
Any
Madam
other?
Chair.
Mayor Wagner?
So just a question, I guess, for my understanding. So with these, like, I was looking at the City of Star. So when it says approval means they denied it. Like it's already gone through. So it doesn't obviously mean they approved the request because they didn't. So I just want to make sure I'm reading that right. It just sounds like I am from the other discussion. And so with them, and like I said, there are several other in Canyon County that did not, some pretty small ones, some nothing significant, I guess you could say. But what is what's the ramification? Do they still get to have their seats on the board? I mean, what is, if let's say next year, the city of Colum, we hope they don't, but let's say the council decides we're not going to pay. Will there actually be any ramifications against, let's say, Caldwell or any of these cities that makes any difference whether they pay or not?
Thank you. Great question. So the way the Regional Public Transportation Authority Act is designed, everyone who is an elected official within a jurisdiction within the RPTA as formed by the voters is automatically a member of Valley Regional Transit. And so would be eligible to serve on the board. Those who are not paying have chosen not to serve, but they would be eligible to. However, at the same time, it's been the practice of Valley Regional Transit and supported by this board that those who are not contributing do not receive direct service. The only caveat to that is that many small communities receive service through Section 5310 funding, and rather than 5307 and 5339, which is designed to go to older adults specifically in rural communities. And so they do receive those services, and previously the local matches come from AAA. So now we are going to ask them directly for that. But if they were to choose to serve on the board, they still would not receive direct public transportation services from us unless they contributed.
Any other questions on the board or on the budget, excuse me? All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Is there a motion? Mayor Wagner.
Motion for approval.
Second.
And just to clarify, that's for resolution VBD 25-036. Is that correct? That is correct. Great. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Nays? Motion carries. Thanks, Jason. All right, moving on to item B, that this is also a public hearing. It's the disposal of assets. I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Is Leslie?
Leslie's not here, so Jason.
Oh, great.
All right, sorry about that. Thank you, everyone. I'm presenting this on Leslie's behalf. This is an action item. Following the presentation of assets to be disposed, the board is asked to conduct a public hearing for the disposal of assets. Following the public hearing, the board of directors will be asked to approve resolution VBD 25-033. For some background, our disposal policy requires a public hearing prior to, and I've got something in front of my slide, sorry. Prior to the assets being transferred to our contributing jurisdictions, donated, sold, or selling for scrap. Surplus assets, most of which will be beyond their useful life or not practically repairable, accumulate every year. Due to delays in receiving replacement vehicles, many assets planned for disposal in previous years are included in the fiscal year 2026 disposal list. A report on the final disposition of assets in fiscal year 26 will be provided to the board in October of 26. Items for disposal include buses beyond useful life that are not suitable for other VRT services, service and support vehicles beyond useful life, computers, monitors, and equipment beyond useful life that are no longer needed or not suitable for other services. The list of assets is included in the board packet. I've got them in the slideshow. I'm not going to go through it line by line unless you all want me to. But this slide is all rolling stock. This is another slide that's all rolling stock. More rolling stock. Service and support vehicles. Equipment. When preparing to dispose of assets, VRT will follow Idaho code when disposing of government assets, follow VRT financial policies, dispose of assets through the method most advantageous to the organization, and provide final disposition of all assets to ensure accountability to the board. That would welcome any questions.
Madam Chair, I might add one thing. We recognize that there are some nonprofits in our region who would benefit from having donations of some of these assets if they were available. We haven't previously had a donation policy. I'm working on one to bring to us in October. And while your action today will make these vehicles eligible for disposal, we've identified ones that might be useful to some of the nonprofits in the region. We will not dispose of those until after we have completed the donation policy and put out a call for anyone who might be interested in a donation.
Any other questions for Jason?
Madam Chair,
Mayor Wagner?
and sorry to throw this at you. I know it's not yours, but so if you don't know the answer, that's all right. So I just had a question on one of the items. And the age is fairly old, but the miles are really low. It's the Ford F-350. It shows only 57,000 miles. I'm guessing that's taken into account, not just the age, but mileage as well and the use of the vehicle. So I was just curious of that one, because it seems like pretty low miles, even though it's old. You know, if there's any mechanical issues with it. So that's the reason to get rid of it. Could it stick around for a little while, or does anybody know on that one? It's under service support vehicles, the Ford F-350.
And I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that.
So maybe if
So I can take a shot at answering that. It is, you're right, very low miles. We are still using it. We frankly, as I understand it, intend to continue using it. Putting it through this disposal list process allows us on the federal end to do some things with the financial, how we treat those vehicles financially and how they're treated in our transit asset management plan, which gives us access to more federal funding for these kinds of vehicles should we need them. But as I understand it, we have every intention to continue using this vehicle, which is, as you know, very low miles.
Great question.
More of a financial asset management program. And you will always get that report in October of what's actually been disposed of. And we'll note the question on this to make sure that I'm correct in what I'm saying here.
Any other questions for staff? All right, is there a member of the public that would like to comment on this? All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Is there a motion? Mayor Kling?
I would like to move that we approve resolution VBD 25-033.
Seconded by Mayor Wagner. Thanks, Mayor Kling. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Jason. All right, we're going to move on to action items. Our first one, we've got the disposal.
You just did.
Yeah, so we'll skip that. It's the renewable natural gas credits. Mr. Joseph Gunther.
This one is going to start with Elaine giving us a little background information on the renewable natural gas. So Elaine.
All right, thank you. So go ahead and move to the next slide. Yeah. Sorry about the sharing today. We'll get there. So while that's coming up, for those of you who were here for the earlier discussion at the executive board about our strategy going forward in expanding the bus fleet, we began a discussion about whether or not we want to continue directly, completely electrifying the fleet in Ada County, just the large bus fleet, with no other energy plan, or whether we want to have a more complete energy plan, which includes not just the large bus fleet in Ada County, but the large bus fleet in Canyon County, as well as the small bus fleet in both counties. And so we're in the process of developing that right now. And early information that we've gotten tells us that we might have, here we go. Okay, here we go. Yep, that's my part. That we might have a better strategy if we diversify our fleet. We certainly have a big investment in electrification in Ada County. Those buses are beautiful buses. People love them. They're clean, they're quiet. They're working quite well, especially the new ones, the Proterras, as you know, we've had some challenges with, but we're working through those. On the other hand, people have always really liked our compressed natural gas buses as well, and they've served us for many years. And it looks like in the next 25 or 30 years, as the United States figures out what it's going to do in terms of its energy management future, it might serve us well to do a more diversified approach where we have both compressed natural gas and electric, and not just on the large bus fleet, but also on the small bus fleet. So we'll be bringing that full plan back to all of you, either in October or January. But in the meantime, we have an opportunity to earn credits, to actually earn money for Valley Regional Transit for the compressed natural gas that we're already using. And the reason we can do that is you'll learn, because if you use renewed natural gas rather than conventional fossil fuel natural gas, there's a lot of benefits to it. So next slide. So right now we have a fair amount of, as I noted, fair number of compressed natural gas. Oh, it's not. Okay, it's being slow today. We have a fair number of compressed natural gas vehicles. We have 52 of them. Those include all the large buses in Canyon County, most of the smaller buses in Canyon County, the cutaways, as well as a portion of the large buses in Ada County. At our Orchard Maintenance Facility, we currently have a compressor, and we do all of our CNG fueling for Ada County and some for Canyon County at that facility. In Canyon County, we otherwise go to the clean energy retail site and buy our compressed natural gas from them. Altogether, between those two sites, we use approximately 391,000 gasoline gallon equivalents in compressed natural gas. And so that offers us a real opportunity beginning now to earn some money on that. Next slide, please. And while that's coming up, I've got to remember what is next. Okay, there we go. So what's the difference? So conventional natural gas is a finite fossil fuel. It, on a scale of 100, it comes in at about 70 in terms of its energy. I'm struggling for the word here. How clean the energy is, the emissions that CNG produces versus a straight fossil fuel like gasoline or diesel. Renewable natural gas, on the other hand, typically comes in, depending on the food stock for the RNG, at about 30. Electric in our region comes in at about 20, because some of the electricity is produced by conventional natural gas, and some is still being produced by some coal-fired plants, although the majority is hydro and other. So RNG offers significant environmental benefit. It comes from capturing methane emissions from organic waste created using a closed loop system that recycles the existing carbon in that organic waste, capturing the methane and converting it into this clean burning fuel. And in doing so, it does not release that methane into the atmosphere as the potent greenhouse gas it is. And so by buying credits to use renewable natural gas, we are committing to using that gas from the pipeline rather than conventional, which reduces our carbon footprint by quite a bit. Next slide. So there's, as I noted, significant benefits to this. We're getting there. I don't know why the slides are being so slow today, but they are. So there's local air quality improvements because of this emissions difference, replacing traditional diesel or gasoline. With CNG has some improvement, but replacing it with RNG significantly reduces, especially the emissions of nitrous oxides, which you all know, or I think you do if you served on this board for any length of time, are the main contributor to summer smog in this region. And when we have inversions in the winter, one of the main contributors to the what happens to our air quality then. So good local air quality improvements. GHG emission reductions, as I noted, there's RNG is significantly cleaner than CNG, and by recovering the methane and not flaring it, there's both near-term and long-term environmental benefits. And then there's economic impacts. National incentives are available on the end use, and that's what we'll talk about today. And one of those is a credit for production of RNG, but the other is the use of that RNG for transportation. So additionally, although it won't happen immediately with this project, we may see some reductions in fuel costs by using RNG. In the future, you'll hear about a project that we're working on with the city of Nampa as they move to produce RNG. And if we're able to do that, we'll not only be able to get these cost earnings, but also some cost savings. So we see some real benefit to it in the near term while we confirm what we think is true, that overall our energy profile will be lower if we move toward this consolidated, diversified fleet than doing just one thing on one piece of the fleet in Ada County. And with that, I'll turn it over to Joe for the rest of the presentation.
Thanks, Elaine. I will be presenting here the item VBD 25028 for the renewable gas credits. Jimmy's still working on getting the slide back up here. All right, looks like our slides are working better now. Thanks, Jimmy. So this is an action item. Staff is requesting that the board approve resolution 25028 to allow us to enter into a contract with a professional service agreement with U.S. Energy to process the renewable energy credits that are available to VRT and to reserve these natural gas credits as for capital expenditures. Background on this quick, we were approached multiple times over the past year at the staff level between Leslie and myself about these credits. And this is, next slide. This is a credit that is applied through the renewable fuel standard. It's administered by the US EPA. The RNG is a D3, which is a cellulosic biofuel, and it comes through as a RIN credit is how it is classified under the RFS. So the producers of RNG then must register with the EPA in order to say we produce this much RNG, and then they sell those credits to people who are like us, a lot of transit agencies, waste collection facilities, anybody who's using compressed natural gas in order to process them through the EPA's transaction system. Most of the methane that we have available to us, and we asked in the RFP where we're getting the RNG, is going to be coming from landfills, wastewater treatment, and agricultural byproducts, which are captured. As Elaine mentioned, the RNG will reduce the emissions because it is considered carbon neutral as it is not being released into the atmosphere. It's being recycled through transportation. So we did produce an RFP or RFQ and received 4 solicitations for this. We looked at multiple options for pricing, which included a fixed price, variable prices, or a sliding scale based on the RIN price that is registered every quarter. Currently, we found that U.S. Energy provided the best proposal with the most options. And next slide. And as you can see here, we're just showing the RIN price that's out there. The blue line is on top for the D3 credits, which it runs between $2 and $3 a gallon, gas gallon equivalent for the CNG. And based on the amount of CNG that VRT uses annually, we should be able to produce $178,000 to $225,000 annually, based on a RIN price at right in the middle at $2.50. VRT, the reason why we would like to reserve these funds for capital expenditures. If you look at the photo, that is a 34-year-old compressed natural gas dispenser. Our system at Orchard was installed by the city of Boise in 1991. And so we are currently applying for a grant that is not locally funded at this point. So we would like to use these funds in order to match that grant in order to replace the fueling station at our Orchard facility. And at that point, I'll stand for questions, and the staff does request that the Board of Directors approve Resolution 25028.
Thanks, Joe. Questions for staff?
Madam Chair,
Lance?
it sounds like there won't be any infrastructure investment required to start using RNG.
That is correct. We already pay for, just general natural gas or methane coming through into our facility by Intermountain Gas.
So the way RNG works today is that RNG producers inject it into the pipeline side by side with conventional natural gas, but then the RINs are only paid out for people who commit to using only RNG. In doing that, it seems like kind of a convoluted system. It took me a minute to get my head around it, but in doing that, it encourages more producers to produce RNG and get them into the pipeline. Ultimately, the pipeline could be majority RNG. Right now it isn't, but we're committing that what gas we'll use out of it will be RNG.
Mark?
Madam Chair, I vaguely remember reading that something about a pipeline from Nampa to the Orchard yard.
So as a separate project, we have applied for a grant in partnership with the city of Nampa for them to begin producing RNG with their wastewater. Our portion of that would be to build the pipeline from their plant to the closest piece of the pipeline to them, which is about a mile and some, and then help us build our RNG infrastructure at Happy Day, which we don't have today, and then separately replace the infrastructure at Orchard. That's a separate project. In order to fund that project, if we have these RIN credits, we'll have enough money for the local match, we believe.
And one final question. Joe said that there was a grant for the replacement of the compressor there at Orchard. Now, do we have that grant or is that an application that's in? I didn't understand
Yeah.
the status of it.
The application went in about 6 weeks ago, and so we're going to wait. Probably we would anticipate between end of September and November before a decision is made. It is a competitive grant under the LONO process.
Was there someone online that had a question?
Chair,
Yes, who is it?
Ryan Davidson, Ada County.
Oh, yep, hi, Commissioner. Go for it.
Yeah, so Ada County just opened an RNG facility at the landfill. Has anyone looked into working directly with that facility?
Great to know, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner Davidson. This is part of our request for the qualifications was to identify where the natural gas, the renewable natural gas was coming from. U.S. Energy could not disclose the local landfill that they were purchasing credits from. But as far as I know, it could be the Ada County landfill.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Jordan.
So kind of similar vein, like with CNG, there are multiple places to get CNG and some are not VRTs facilities, Republic Services. So there may be other partners that will be bringing online or have brought online RNG. Do we anticipate other producers in the Valley in the next 10, 20 years?
As these credits become more widely distributed, we do anticipate wastewater treatment facilities, probably an agricultural facility or two, to actually come online. Right now, the closest agricultural facility that we identified was in Twin Falls.
There has been a fair amount of conversation in addition to the Ada County landfill of other landfills in the region and other wastewater treatment plants in the region. And I recently was told that the agricultural producers in Canyon County are reinterested again. Prior to COVID, they were talking about it. They're interested again in doing this.
Other questions? Okay, thanks, Joe. Board of Directors, is there a motion? Yes. Thanks, Mayor Steer. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Mayor Kling. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we're going to move on to 6 or 7C, legislative policy position update. Ms. Elaine Clegg.
So, oops, thank you. I told you all that I was going to come up with a process to do legislative positions. We didn't have a formal process. I had anticipated starting this this month with the executive board and then taking it to the full board in October. But in fact, the federal legislative positions became ripe sooner than that. So I took this to the executive board last meeting and am bringing it to you this meeting. The request will be that you support these positions so that I can continue to work with our federal partners to move them forward. Next. So, as you know, there's going to be a reauthorization of the federal transportation bill. Our federal partners who we've been working with have begun taking positions on these. And we have 5 different items that we'd like for you to weigh in on as we go forward. Next. This is an action item. I do request that you approve these positions as outlined so I can continue working with our federal partners on these policies. Next. So the federal surface transportation bill is reauthorized every 5 years. It includes highways, transit, and rail. Within highways are bike and ped. The last bill that was written and passed and signed was the Investment in Infrastructure Jobs Act, or IIJA, in 2021. It expires on September 30th of 2026 and will require action by Congress for continued spending of federal funding for transportation at that time. Historically, the bill has not been reauthorized on time, and so typically that continuing expenditure authority has happened through continuing resolutions. Everything from 1 between ICE-T and T21 to 30 continuing resolutions between MAP 21 and the FAST Act. So not a great track record, but we expect, despite that, for there to be a fair amount of discussion pretty quickly, given the administration's interest in it. Next. We work with 3 federal partners, the American Public Transportation Association, which I mentioned in our announcement this morning, the Bus Coalition, which I'm a board member of, and is a group of small to mid-sized systems that are bus only and really focused on making sure that the rolling stock in the transit agencies around the country remains in a state of good repair. And then the Community Transit Association of Idaho, which focuses especially on small urban networks, which would be our Canyon County services particularly, and how to ensure that agencies that access the small urban funding have the same access and the same advantages as some of the larger agencies where they need it. And then locally, we work with the Community Transportation Association of Idaho. You may remember we had a transit day at the Capitol last January, really successful introduction to some of these issues. Next. So there's a couple of these positions are ongoing and pretty simple. Continued funding for bus replacements and expansion. I mentioned the lag time between MAP 21 and the FAST Act. One of the hangups was that there was not very much money when MAP 21 was passed, and so it was only authorized for 2 years rather than 5. And in the meantime, the struggle was to figure out what is the next kind of funding that is going to be used in transportation, because the Highway Trust Fund at that point was using more than it was bringing in. So since that time, Congress has continually added more and more general fund to the Transportation Act to pay for the things that are needed to keep both the roadway and the transit systems in this country in good shape. So during MAP 21, funding for bus replacements was cut by 50%. And the result was that we now have a 25% smaller bus fleet in the United States than we did 13 years ago. The other result being that the state of good repair, in other words, the age of buses on the road being used, has continually risen during that time. We saw when IIJA was passed with a big infusion of money there, that both of those started to decline. Well, that the age of buses started to decline again, and the number of buses on the road started to increase again. So this first position is really focused on not letting happen what happened 13 years ago and lose another big chunk of our bus fleet. The second is continued support for keeping transit in the Highway Trust Fund. In the 1950s, when the Highway Trust Fund was created to build the interstate system, it was only highways. Over the years, it's been expanded to include bike and pedestrian, to include some other things, and then finally, in the late 70s, to add transit as a component of it. and begin helping fund transit in a more reliable way at the federal level. So our request here is pretty, I think, usual, that we would want to continue to have transit in the Highway Trust Fund. I haven't heard anyone saying otherwise, that it shouldn't be. Well, very few people, I should say. Next. Couple of new positions. You probably have heard about NEPA processes and other federal processes from your own works and your own agencies. We face challenges. A couple of the big ones being that very simple projects are still required to go through NEPA. An example of that on our end would be bus stop signs. It took us 15 months to get the NEPA approval to put new signs in the ground when we did the service change. And we think that's kind of crazy. Real estate acquisition is much easier if you're a roadway agency than it is if you're a transit agency or a rail agency, and that's because FHWA has a different process than FTA on real estate acquisition. So those are two examples. So this position is that we ask DOT to go through all of those processes across all of the agencies that it works with, which includes FHWA, highways, FTA, transit, FRA, railroads, and FAA, aviation. And in all of those agencies, who has the process that works the best, the easiest, the fastest, and adopt that process for all agencies across the board. And we think it's the right thing to do because none of those processes were adopted to get around anything. They were adopted to make sure that the right thing happened. And so where they've been able to find streamlining that works, we think we should share that streamlining with everyone. The next one is one that I've actually been the person pushing. As I've taken this job, it's surprising to me that nobody's worked for this in prior years. Again, when the Highway Trust Fund was created and the interstate system was started, that's when Title 23 was largely amended and rewritten to support the federal program. And when they did that, they included a clause that allowed states that had extensive federal or tribal lands to enjoy a reduced match rate to be able to spend federal dollars. And the basis for that, the rationale is that, for instance, in the state of Idaho, 62% of our land is not taxable, federal land. And so we shouldn't have to pay as much to get federal dollars, to use those federal dollars, because we don't have as much capacity to earn the local match for that. When that was the case, in the 50s, when that was added, rail was all private. So passenger rail was all private in the United States, and transit was local and state. It had not yet been added to the federal system. And so they did not add that same clause to Title 49, which is the title that governs transit and rail. So it's really a pretty simple request, which is to take the clause in Title 23, add it to Title 49, and create parity between rail, transit, and highways in local match in the states that have extensive federal and tribal lands. APTA has adopted it as a position for their legislative push this year, and I think it makes perfect sense. It would help us tremendously if it were to pass, be able to both expand service and potentially save local costs. Next. The one that probably has the most controversy around it right now is that APTA is proposing that they change the split between discretionary and formula funding in the Section 5339 program, which is bus and bus facilities. That's the program that we've used to buy all of our new buses and to improve our facilities, both at Orchard and Main Street Station. And right now, the formula is, or the split is 30% goes to formula funding and 70% to discretionary. In other words, grants that you compete for. And APTA is proposing to flip that to 70% formula and 30% discretionary. This isn't without cause. The 30 largest transit agencies in the United States are really facing a pretty dire fiscal cliff because of the changes in ridership and the changes in inflationary changes that have happened since COVID. And so without something, those agencies are facing pretty big cuts. If you've been following the news, SEPTA, the agency that serves the Philadelphia region, got there a year early, and they are facing up to a 30% service cut if they can't find a solution soon. On the other hand, as you can see, we've benefited greatly from these discretionary funds. And under the formula, we would have only received 6.5 million more in the last 5 years, or we'd receive 6.5 million more in the next 5, rather than the 40 million that we've been able to get out of discretionary grants. We think with only 30% discretionary that small systems would have a really hard time competing. So we've had extensive conversations between all 3 of these national organizations about what to do and how to approach this. They've put together a working committee to see if we can come up with a resolution. I've been named to that working committee, and the resolution that's being talked about the most is maybe a 50-50 split with some set-asides within the discretionary program for smaller systems so that they still have access. I don't know where it's going to land, but at least we've got a committee set up to begin to resolve it. So my ask on this one is that you support me to serve on that committee and trust that we will find a solution that does make sure that we still can keep up with our state of good repair on bus replacements. Next. So that's it. This isn't state positions, so keeping with the old the calendar that we were going to use before, I'm going to bring state positions to all of you in October rather than bring them to the executive board first and then the full board. I think I'll just bring them to the full board altogether in October. So the action I'm asking you to take today is to support the positions as outlined and support my service on the working committee to resolve the 53-39 split.
Thanks, Elaine. Questions for Elaine? Mayor Kling?
I would just make a motion.
Okay.
If that's
Mayor
okay.
Kling, go for it.
I just want to say thank you for your work. Really appreciate your initiative. And I would just make a motion to approve the positions outlined in the memo and continue working on the policies with federal partners, and that Elaine, we support Elaine's nomination to the committee.
Second.
Move second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Moving on to information items. Elaine, do we need to cover this even though you mentioned this previously, the Area Agency on Aging funding reduction?
So, yeah, we do not have a formal presentation on the Area Agency on Aging. I did mention it previously. Would be happy to answer any questions if folks have them about the challenges that this brings. I can tell you that we've already had an early conversation with FTA, and we have a conversation set up with all of the partners that we work with on these services. We had an early phone conversation with them, and in that conversation, we developed a strategy that will get us through this fiscal year without having to cut services. And it'll give us between now and then to work on finding some additional local match so that we can continue those services next year, and or other strategies, which could include having to cut services. We're pretty confident, given those conversations, that we're going to get some additional local match, small bits and pieces from everyone to make up the difference.
Questions? All right, going to the fifth fiscal year 2025 procurement calendar. Jason, anything? No presentation? Okay. Questions at all on that one? All right, we don't have an executive session. Any staff reports? None? All right, well, with that, meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.